before we do that, I wanted to mention to people that the All of Us Research Program, the ultimate goal of this program is to build the largest database in the world. The ultimate goal is to have 1 million people join the All of Us Research Program. And the goal is to allow for researchers and physicians to have better information to make precise decisions about our health. Dr.
Hmm.
Izard, you want to respond to that one?
Yeah, it's important. For years, um, um, medical research has been going on with us at as participants, sometimes unwilling participants, but we never were at the table. And the idea now is that we want to turn the table. We want to be at the table. If you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And so these medications that you use, some every day, a lot of them were tested on people, but they weren't tested on us. So we don't know, whether we respond differently. There are different protocols that we do for different treatments. A lot of times we weren't included in those studies and those as they develop those protocols, and so we don't know, do they apply to us. So we want to be part of the not only the research. We want to be part of the researchers, and so that's one of our goals too, is to produce more researchers. So we're out there also um, at the bench tops doing those experiments too. But yeah, it's important that we get on the table, at the table. We don't want to be on the menu.
And that is so important. And, people have been asking, like, how many people right now? And I just want to kind of run some numbers around for you all to know. Like, right now, we have over 800,000 participants in the program nationwide. However, we have about 564,000 people that have completed the first initial steps to be a complete member in the program. So if you have gone to joinallofus.org and signed up and you filled out the questions and surveys and you need to schedule an appointment to come in so we can get your biosamples, please do it, because we want to reach that. We want to have a complete number. And so we have a ways to go. So just want to let you know, if you have questions, you can always call our office at 414-955-2689. That's 414-955-2689. And our staff, we've been calling and reminding people to come in because we want to make sure you get those results back and for research to be able to include you in on that research. So just want to kind of let you know what's going on in that area. So Dr. Izard,
Should
diabetes.
we jump into it?
We should jump into
Okay.
it. Okay.
Yeah.
I was always thinking about that because in our family we do have a history of it.
Hmm.
You just always hear people say, "Oh, you can't. Your sugar is high." That's the way we
Hmm.
used to say. Older people used to always
They
say,
got sugar.
"Got high sugar." But that means that the sugar levels in the blood are high.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, there's different types of diabetes too.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Izard, you're going to
So
educate us a
I'm
little
gonna
bit,
educate
right?
you. So yeah. So I'm gonna tell you about my own personal journey, and then I'll tell you a little about diabetes. So last November, it was like right after things after Halloween. I remember. I noticed that I was drinking a lot more water. So I was intentionally trying to drink more water because the year before, when I had my physical, my hemoglobin A1C. Now that's a test or glycohemoglobin is another name you might hear for it, but it's a test that looks at diabetes and looks at your blood sugar averaged over 2 or 3 months. Now that has an advantage over doing a random blood sugar because your random blood sugar, when they have you come in and have you fast for 8 hours or 12 hours and they check your blood sugar, that blood sugar is going to depend on what time of day it is that they test it. It's going to depend on whether you're really fasting. So how long it's been since you last ate. It's going to depend on what you last ate. It's going to depend on how active you were at the time they drew it. So a lot of things are going to kind of affect that fasting blood sugar. But the hemoglobin A1C is looking at your blood sugar average over 2 or 3 months. And so for that test, you don't have to fast for it. You can have an entire cheesecake before you do the test, and your hemoglobin A1C is not going to go up one way, up or down one way or the other, because it's looking at your sugar average over a long period of time. Okay, so it gives you kind of a good idea of what things are averaging. So anyway, so I noticed that I was thirsty more and I was peeing more too. And the year before, my hemoglobin A1C was 6.4. Now, I want you to keep this in mind during as we talk, that these two numbers, hemoglobin A1C levels of 6.5 and and 5.7. Okay, those are important. 5.7 and 6.5. 5.7 is the cutoff for normal. Okay, if you're or 5.6 is the cutoff for normal. 5.7 and above is abnormal. So if you're above 5.7, but you haven't hit 6.5, which is the other number we're talking. 6.5 is a cutoff for diabetes. So if you're above 6.5, you have diabetes for that hemoglobin A1C. Like I said, if you're above 5.6
Mm.
or 5.7 and above, you are abnormal, but you're not diabetic yet. Okay, so there's a gap there between the 5.7 and the 6.5. Okay, that is called pre-diabetes. That means that your sugars are higher than average, but it's not yet hit the criteria for diabetes. So you call pre-diabetes. It means you're prone to becoming diabetic at some point. You need to start watching your sugar. You need to start watching your weight. You need to start exercising and doing those things. So there are a lot of people out there who are in that pre-diabetic range. If you don't know, if you're overweight, I would say there. If you're overweight, especially if you're obese, if your body mass index, your BMI is over 30, you should ask your doctor to check you for diabetes, to do that hemoglobin A1C test. And like I said, you don't have to fast for it. So I want this morning, I think the main thing I want people to be proactive. I want you to start thinking and taking control of your own health. Okay. And if your doctor's not checking that, ask them. So, should I be checked for diabetes? And how about that hemoglobin A1C test I heard Dr. Izard talking about? Okay. They can easily add that test on to any blood work they're getting. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, you should really be getting in and get your physical. But anyway, so the year before, my A1C was 6.4. So I was pre-diabetic. I wasn't quite diabetic yet. I was right knocking at the door. So then that year I started walking more. I started exercising. I tried to lose some weight, and I was drinking more water. But then I noticed I was peeing more, and I was more than I thought I should be. Okay, so now my wife has diabetes, and so she has a glucometer at home, check your blood sugar. So I checked my blood sugar, and it read high.
Mm.
Now that's
After you were doing all this,
I
it's
know,
still
right?
red high, huh?
Right.
Okay.
So if anybody has a glucometer and reads high, that's a danger sign. That means it's reading higher than the machine can measure. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So I said, okay. I looked at the strips. Oh, these strips are expired. Maybe the strips are bad. It couldn't be me. It must be the strips. So I said, let me go in. This is on Saturday. I said, let me go in after church on Sunday and check my blood sugar and see what we get in the office. So I fasted for that day. Went into the office, checked my blood sugar on Sunday after church. It was 370. So
Mm.
that's if it's above 200, that's diabetes. So I said, "Oh man, I don't want to be diabetic," because I know as a doctor, I know about diabetes. I know the problems it can cause. Now, there's two types of diabetes. There's type 1 and type 2. I'm looking at being a type 2 because type 1 diabetics don't make insulin. So those are people that need to have insulin. It's what they used to call juvenile onset diabetes. So those people don't make insulin, and in the past they would have died until back in the 50s, where they discovered insulin and they were able to start giving people injections, and so to save people's lives. But um, you don't make any insulin if you have type 1 diabetes. And that's about less than 5% of people who have diabetes have type 1 diabetes. Most of us have type 2 diabetes. And type 2 diabetes is when your blood sugar is high because you're resistant to insulin. Now, what insulin does is, we all heard about insulin. What insulin does is it's a hormone that turns your cells on and makes your cells sensitive to the glucose, the blood sugar. So you eat something, your body breaks down that sugar, it flows around your bloodstream. Now it's supposed to go to your muscles to be used. Okay, if you don't have insulin, that sugar can't get to those muscles. And so what ends up happening is with type 1 diabetics, if they don't have insulin, well, they can't use that blood sugar. So the sugar goes high because all this sugar is floating around their bloodstream. They can't even get it to their muscles. And so they start burning, first they start burning fat, and then they start burning muscle because they can't use the glucose. And so that causes all kinds of problems, with your body when you start burning, you start burning yourself because you can't use all this sugar that's all around. Okay. Um,
So that's kind of like when people start losing weight and they don't understand that.
That's yep, that's what happens, especially with type 1 diabetics. Type 2s will notice too, and that's the other thing I started noticing. I started losing some weight, and it was kind of ungained. It wasn't because I was trying to lose weight, but I lost more than I thought I should be losing, and so that was another red flag. I said, okay, something's going on. So, but anyway, so type 2 diabetics, like I was saying, they make insulin. In fact, if you measure their insulin level, it's higher than normal. And what's happening is that their body is resistant to insulin. So the insulin that's in their floating around their system that's telling those cells to pick up that glucose, it's not working. So they got to make more insulin. Your insulin's making your pancreas. So that pancreas starts making more insulin to overcome the resistance. And for a while that works. But it gets to a point after a while that your pancreas is making all the insulin it can make, and it's still not enough to overcome the resistance. And that's when you start developing signs of diabetes. That's now that all that sugar is floating around in your bloodstream, and it starts getting filtered through your kidney. And when that, as a general rule, sugar pulls water with it. So you start peeing out sugar, and you start pulling more water into your kidney. So that's why you start peeing a lot, because you're peeing out, and that's why you lose weight, because you're peeing out a bunch of calories, because that sugar all has calories in it. So people start losing weight because they're peeing out calories. They call it polydipsia, polyuria, when you have this excessive thirst and excessive thirst and excessive urination. Common symptom. So that's usually one of the first signs I tell people to look for. If you're pre-diabetic or diabetes runs in your family, and you start noticing, man, I'm drinking a lot, I'm peeing a lot, get checked and take your blood sugar checked and make sure you're not diabetic. So anyway, back to myself. So my blood sugar was reading 370 on a Sunday afternoon, and I'm thinking, oh man, I don't want to be diabetic. Diabetes can cause problems primarily with circulation. So it affects the circulation in your extremities. So all of us know diabetics who lost a foot or a leg because their circulation was bad, because the diabetes blocks up those blood vessels in your legs. Not only that, you get an infection because your circulation is bad. You can't get those white blood cells to the area where the infection is, and so your healing is bad. So it affects the immune system. Diabetes also affects your ability to feel, and so people with diabetes can develop what's called neuropathy. So they start, first of all, it might be tingling or burning in their feet. Primarily feet, could be hands also. But in the foot, it causes particular problems because you might step on something, and normally you get a pebble in your shoe, you feel it, so you stop and you take it out. Well, if you have neuropathy, you get a pebble in your shoe, you don't feel it, and before you know it, you got an infection because this thing is ground down into your foot, and you got an infection that's set in, and you didn't even feel it. And not only that, you can't heal it because the circulation is bad and your immune system's bad. So that's why diabetics lose their feet. So I know about that. I know about retinopathy. Retinopathy is when the diabetes affects the small blood vessels in your eye. And so one of the leading causes of blindness in the U.S. is from diabetes. So diabetics should get their eyes checked. It affects the small blood vessels in your kidneys. So diabetics are prone to getting kidney failure. And so a lot of people who are in the dialysis centers are diabetic because that diabetes has affected their kidneys. Also, it affects the small blood vessels in your heart. So a diabetic's risk of having a heart attack is the same as someone who's had a heart attack already. So your risk for heart disease goes way up. So I know all these things. Plus, my father-in-law was diabetic, and we'd be at Thanksgiving dinner, and they tell Wendy James, you can't have a piece of pie. You know you're diabetic. And he says, I'm a grown man. Y'all can't tell me what to do. So then he has two pieces of pie. Just to spite him, And so, so I don't want to deal with all that stuff. So I said, I don't want to be diabetic.
Let me ask you this, Doctor. because my wife is type 2.
Mm-hmm.
When she was first diagnosed, they had her on, uh, she was doing insulin as well as, what's that pill, metformin?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So she had to take both.
Yeah.
Which I'm told is somewhat rare, but in any case, she developed a disease where her skin started peeling, her hands and feet.
Mm-hmm.
They call it Palmer's something. Are you familiar with that at all?
No,
It's related to diabetes, is what she was told. But everything that you did and spoke to as far as scenarios,
Mm-hmm.
I see it. I seen the transitions with her.
Yeah.
Now she so far she's in pretty decent health.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, diabetes, man, it really ravages the body.
Right. And I know a lot of people in the listening audience out there, they know exactly what I'm talking about, because I know a lot of us have diabetic.
And
so
I always tell her,
yeah,
keep some shoes on your feet. You know,
there you
you're
go.
not supposed to run around here with no shoes on, because again, what you spoke to,
right,
the healing, the blood circulation, the neuropathy, she goes through all of that, and it's hard to watch sometimes. You know, but she does what she's supposed to do. She takes her medicine, but she's one that loves her sweets. So I guess what I initially wanted to ask you, because she feels like as long as she takes her metformin,
she can have some sweets.
She should be able to eat what she want to eat.
Right.
And is that true?
Devo, you read my script, man. This is exactly what I want to talk about today, because the traditional way of treating diabetes, and I'm going to get into this, the traditional way of treating diabetes, the way I learned when I was in residency in medical school, was you treat the diabetes to get the blood sugar down. And so we measure these things like hemoglobin A1C, which shows your average blood sugar. And our goal, again, that cutoff for diabetes is if you're 6.5 or above. Okay. Our goal is to get your A1C at least below 8. Okay. And ideally below 7. So the way to do that, give medication. It gives as much. If you need insulin, even if you're on metformin, if you need insulin, okay, we'll give you insulin, because we want to get that A1C down below 8 or ideally below 7. And so the problem with that, and I'll come back to the problem with that. The problem is that you're making yourself, this high insulin state that you have now is causing other problems. And so, and this is what my challenge is today, is for those of you who are diabetic or have a diabetic loved one, I want you to start rethinking diabetes, to rethink the way that we treat it. So not just to shoot for a number or to manage it. I want you to think about getting rid of it. Okay. So
how can we get rid of it, Dr. Izard?
That's gonna be the meat of what we're talking about today.
When I was reading, that's one thing that they say it might be dormant or something. But just talk a little bit
I'm gonna do.
that.
So I don't know how far are we from the break, because this is gonna be the meat of what it's time. Okay, let me say. So back in my own story. So I went on Monday morning, had my medical assistant check my hemoglobin A1C. It came back, and I was shocked. It was 9. I'm sorry, it was 11.6. Wow. 11. I mean, so now that's like way up there. And I don't know why I jumped from 6.4 the year before to 11.6. So by all means, I really should have been on insulin, at that point, when my sugar is that high. But I tell you what, I'm going to tell you what I did after the break. So stay tuned.
This is Karen Dotson from the All of Us Research Program at the Medical College of Wisconsin. And we have Dr. Kevin Izard with us. He's a family practice doctor. And the topic today is diabetes. And we ask that if you have questions, please call us at 414-444-5250, 414-444-5253. So you can sit at the table with us. Join us today. Grab your cup of coffee, your juice, your water, because water is always good when we talk about diabetes. They say you should drink that in the morning first thing. I was reading about that. So please join us at the table. We have Dr. Kevin Izard. We'll be having the second half. We'll also be having Dr. Jeff on the other side. 444-5253. We're at the table this morning. We're having some good conversation about diabetes. The community asked us to talk about diabetes, and Dr. Kevin Izard is here and prepared to do so with you today. And the first half of first half of the hour, we were talking about the challenges with diabetes. How do you know you have diabetes? And Dr. Izard, you mentioned about type 1 and type 2 diabetes. And for people that are just joining us, just give them a brief description about that before we go in. Yes.
So we talked about. I'm talking about myself. I was diagnosed a year ago with almost exactly a year ago, 9 months with type 2 diabetes. That means that I'm insulin resistant. That's usually related to weight. The more you weigh, the more resistant you become. And the difference between type 1 and type 2 is that type 1s don't make insulin. Type 2s make insulin. But the body's resistant to it. And if there's a good thing about type 2, it means that you can reverse it. So if you lose weight, if you change your insulin resistance, you can put your diabetes into remission. And that's what I made it my goal, was that I said, even though my hemoglobin A1C was 11.6, which was sky high, I said, I'm going to make it a goal to put my diabetes into remission rather than just treat it.
Okay. So yours was over 11, and you mentioned that anything over 6.5.
And over 6.5, remember those numbers? Yeah, 6.5 and 5.7. 5.7 is when you're pre-diabetic. You're higher than normal, but if you're above 5.7, but you're not yet at 6.5, then you're pre-diabetic. Okay, above 6.5 is diabetes. So I said,
so you were at 11.
I was 11. I was way over.
Wow.
Yeah. So first thing I did, and this is what I want to challenge people to do. First thing I did was get myself, talk to my doctor about getting a continuous glucose monitor. They call them CGMs. And some of you have seen commercials for Freestyle Libre. Dexcom is another one. Those are the two big ones. And it's a little device about the size of a quarter or nickel. You put it on it's got a little needle in it. You stick it on your arm, and you can measure your blood sugar for 2 weeks, 14 days with the Freestyle Libre, and 10 days with the Dexcom. Great thing about these things is as the technology is developed, it got smaller. So again, it's only the size of a quarter, and it talks to your phone. So it sends on a continuous level. It sends your blood sugar to your phone. So you got an app on your phone. You can take it out and you can see what your sugar is doing. In fact, you can even set it up so that it'll alarm your phone to let you know my sugar is getting too low, or my sugar is going up, or so you can. And the problem I always had with diabetics is I would say they come in, okay, so your hemoglobin A1C is above 6.5. You're diabetic. Let's talk about making some diet changes. I want you to cut out the sugar, no regular sodas, no juices, and then we'll check it again in 3 months to see what is done.
Caller, I see you on the line. We'll be right with you shortly.
And so, but it's hard to look at what you're eating today and to attach that to what your hemoglobin A1C is going to be like in 3 months. That's always a problem. And so the thing with these continuous glucose monitors is that you can actually see, you eat something and you can see your sugar goes up. In a half hour, you see, okay, my sugar is starting to go up. It's going up 2 hours. It's peak. It's coming back down. You can actually see that. And so you can see what effects certain foods have on you. Now, that was the one thing I did, was I got that CGM. The other thing I said, I had to cut out the sugar. So it's not like I went extremely, went extreme with this. I had some sugar back in my diet, but for the most part, no beans, no rice, no potatoes. Potatoes was hard. Pasta. We lost the caller on the line.
Caller, we lost you on the line. If you want to call back, we'll be ready for you. Yeah. Go ahead, doctor.
Yeah. So I cut those out. I rarely had sweets. So I'll have a piece of cake or cookie or something, but I do it mindfully now, so I'll just add it in, occasionally. But those are things I did. So cut that out. I started losing some weight. Started exercising, and so again, my goal was in a year I wanted to not be diabetic. So again, I'm at 9 months now, and so
what are your numbers now?
Okay. So what I
I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah. So what I thought, okay, starting off, I started at 11.6 with my hemoglobin A1C. So in 3 months, my goal in 3 months was to be below that 6.5. Okay. And
Caller,
so
hold on one second, caller. I know you're on the line.
you go. Wait, let's go. Caller, you have a comment?
Go ahead, caller. You're on the caller. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Good morning. You're at the table.
Yes.
You get a little echo too. Can you turn your radio down?
Yes. Okay, you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, we hear you.
Yes. My name is Emmeline Larkin, and I've been diagnosed with diabetes ever since I retired in 2005. Okay, I have a first cousin. She had both her legs amputated. But one time when I was diagnosed with my diabetes, because it runs in my family, I got off it for 3 years, and because I'm a born again believer in God, and He kept me all them time. But when I found out my cousin had both her leg amputated, I got back on, went to the doctor, and got back on the pills. I got back on the pill because I love to drive and I like to walk. And so I was hearing you say, I know diabetes do not come from sweet. It's come from starchy food like rice, potatoes, bread, and you said beans, and I'm going to cook me some pinto beans tomorrow. So I can't eat no pinto beans.
Oh, there we go. Okay,
right.
so
You
so
want me to
how
tell you?
can she balance this, Dr. Izard, so she can have her pinto beans and maybe not a whole lot, but at least sometime. Go ahead.
This is the thing. Going back to my father-in-law, you tell him.
My doctor told me that I can eat anything but eat in moderation.
There you go.
And when I eat in moderation, that don't mean you eat it today and go back tomorrow. It means you eat it today and you can go back maybe Saturday or something like that. And so, okay, I'm on I'm type 2, and I'm on two type of pills. I take metformin twice a day, morning and night. And then I take, she put me on a glycinide, Glyndide, glycinide, because I told her, she said that she want to put me on insulin. I said, I don't like sticking myself, and I don't want to stick myself. So she said, I'm going to put you on glycinide. That's helped the instant. Because I heard you say type 1 instant is that's when you don't have instant. Let me see.
Right,
you don't have instant. But type 2, you do.
Right.
You had an instant. And then so I want to know, I'm tired of popping pills and stuff. And I'm really tired. Like you said, you don't want to be diabetic. I don't want to be no kind of sickness. I really don't want to be diabetic. But ain't nothing you can do about it when you're there. But you can work on it. Like the doctor tell you, exercise, plenty exercise, and get plenty rest for that stuff. And one time I went to, she said it was an 8.9. And I went back another time. She said, oh, good. And she wrote me a letter, said it's 8.0. And she said, I want you to go a little below that. She said, because you're doing good. Right. And I said, I want to go below and get finished with it. So, like I said, I don't want to pop pills. And then I'm tired of popping them, especially the metformin. I heard that the metformin a type of pill that's not good for diabetes. And that, in my head, I got so bad a headache and neck pain. But I've been taking all kinds of stuff. My doctor sent me to therapy, chiropractic, biopsy, everything out here, and still got the pain. So that metformin, somebody said could call headache. I want to know, is this out anything else out beside that pill or to do better for diabetic?
Okay, so you wanted to know about the medication, and is something else better for you? What are your options?
And that's what I want to tell you today, because I want you to rethink think differently about this diabetes. Because
I know.
Let's get you off the medication. So there's so there's we know there's certain people that can go to remission. So we define remission as, now in medicine we don't say people are cured of something. Like if you have cancer, if you have cancer and
once you
they do
have
the
it, it's
chemo,
like it's in
right?
remission.
It's
Right.
it's in remission. It means it's not doing anything. It's not active. They always reserve. They say, okay, it may come back. But how do you get your diabetes into remission? How do you get your diabetes below that 5.6 again? Okay.
Yeah.
We know that people who have had gastric bypass, we noticed that when people had that bypass surgery, man, if something happened, their sugars start to drop, and almost immediately their diabetes gets better. So there's something about not only it wasn't just the weight loss, because this is way before the weight loss started taking effect. Something about them doing surgery on the stomach did something that made their blood sugars improve. So we know gastric bypass is a way that people can improve become remission, put themselves in remission.
That's pretty major.
It is major. We also know that people that lose a lot of weight, especially this is type 2 diabetics. If you lose significant weight, in fact, if you lose 15% of your body weight, 65% of those people went into remission. That's just by losing weight.
What remission?
That means that it's no longer.
Right. It's below the 6.5.
Yeah.
Oh, below.
So
is that bad, or you got to bring it back up?
No. We
good.
want that's good. We want to have right.
Go down.
Right. So you said your doctor wanted to get you below 8. We want to get you below 6.5.
Yeah. So remission means that your body doesn't react to the illness anymore. You don't really show symptoms of the illness.
So really, it did for diabetes. You want to get it below 6. That's the real normal.
Yeah, normal. He said is 5.6.
Right.
5.6.
Right. So you want to get below 5. Ideally, you want to get below 5.6. Okay. Now, if you can get down to 7, that's good. I mean, if you can get below 8, that's even that's better than what you've been.
Better than
right.
Okay,
so you got the 8.0. That's good. But you want to get even lower.
I'm trying to get below that. But like I'm saying, I don't want to get nothing worse or nothing like that. Because she give me a pill called Bertonine because I get swelling, and she keeps me on that pill because I was in the hospital 2018. That's right before they called me. And she was telling me that she wanted me to stay on that pill because it make my legs swell and stuff like that. And I do go to the restroom all through the night. I'm flushing that water, flushing. I heard you say you flushing something like the diabetes. I'll be listening good.
That peeing a lot may not be a good sign, right? That might mean that your sugars are still running high. So, so I want you to keep listening because I'm going to tell you more about how to do that. So I know we got another caller, but keep listening, and I'm going to address this. How do you go into remission? How to get off this medication?
Okay. Thank you for joining us at the table.
Yes, thank you. God bless you.
Good morning, caller. You're at the table. We're talking about diabetes. Welcome at the table.
Good morning. How is everybody?
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. Hey, all right. Dr. Izard, long time ago, you used to be my doctor. And you were the best doctor I ever had. Yeah. And, but out of company moved out in that you wasn't under your wouldn't cover, I had to move around.
Yeah.
But you kind of answered the last caller had some questions. Like, long story short, my metformin that was prescribed to me, it upset my stomach.
Yeah.
Real bad.
Very common side effect.
And I just stopped taking it altogether because I didn't want to, live like that as far as, stomach upset all the time. So I recently had a doctor visit, and that number of mine went from a 7, which it had been there for years, but now it's up to an 8. And so he wanted the doctor prescribe something called Ozempic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's in a needle form, and I ain't no big, fan of needles, but I agreed to it, Dr. Izard, but the insurance, it's like it's very expensive, and it didn't cover the price that I got to pay for it. But so my question is do you know if there's any program out there that will help a patient, or someone that you know, you pay that high extreme price for that medication.
Yeah.
Is there any programs out there, Doctor?
There are programs out there. So first of all, have you been on the Ozempic already? Have you tried it?
No, never. I've never had that. You know, it would have been my first time.
I got some bad news for you, because one of the biggest side effects of Ozempic is, guess what? Stomach upset. Yep. So I mean, people are getting incredible weight loss with it, but what Ozempic does is this. Ozempic is what they call a GLP-1. What it stands for? It stands for glucagon-like peptide. So glucagon is a hormone that your body makes. Okay, and glucagon kind of does the opposite. It's like a counter hormone for insulin. So when your insulin level goes up, your glucagon level kind of goes up to bring it down. So whereas insulin is kind of driving that blood sugar into your muscles and into your liver where you use it, glucagon on the other hand is taking it out of your liver, saying, okay, we need like when your sugar starts getting low, your body says, okay, I need more sugar. And your glucagon says, okay, let's break down this stored sugar that we have in the liver, and let's use that. So let's put it back in circulation. So that's what glucagon does. But what it does, and how weight loss comes about from it, is that it slows down your gastric emptying. So when you eat something, it slows down your body's movement of that food through your stomach, and because of that, you stay full longer. It also triggers your brain, does something to your brain. It triggers your brain to say, I'm full. So that's where the weight loss. When they start, because Ozempic has been around for a while. Semaglutide is a generic name for it. It's been around for a while. We used it for diabetes. But what they found was that when people were taking the diabetics who were taking Ozempic for the diabetes, they were losing weight. And so the manufacturer said, hey, you know what? People are losing weight. Why don't we see if we can use this for weight loss? Why don't we increase the dose and see if people lose even more weight? And so they did these studies. And so what they did over 2 years, they took people, put them in a study. Here we go, studies. Put them in a study. And one group got Ozempic, one group got a placebo. So they didn't know what they were getting. They watched them. And what they found was that the people who were in the Ozempic group lost a bunch of weight. In fact, if you look at medications for weight loss, there's a few of them out there. To be approved by the FDA for any indication, in this case weight loss, it has to be better than placebo. That's a very low bar. It's got to be better than sugar pill, and they got to be able to show that in studies. If they can't show that, then that's why you see stuff like Dexatrim and stuff on TV. They can't prove that they're better than placebo. So don't waste your money on those kind of medications, because they can't prove they're better than placebo. If a medication,
Dr. Izard, I have a question for you. Because you mentioned about the medications and also surgery as it relates to the stomach. So really, it sounds like diabetes really kind of has some formulation or something in the stomach. So explain that, because then it really depends. So my question is, what can we do for our stomachs?
That's really again, talk about research. That's kind of the $1 million question right now. Is like we still don't know why, when people have that gastric bypass, why their sugar starts to drop. There's something else that's going on. We think it might be that surgery kind of stimulates different hormones that are causing, because there's different hormones we're discovering, like ghrelin and other things that actually tell your brain, I'm full, stop eating. Okay. And so we don't know those hormones yet. So they're discovering more and more of them. And I think we're in a precipice right now of a revolution of treating obesity with medication, with hormones, because these are hormones that what we're giving you. When we're talking about Ozempic, semaglutide, again, it's a glucagon-like hormone. So
So I'm almost wondering, because I was reading something also, Dr. Izard, about fasting, being able to kind of help the stomach, help the body heal. And so can you speak to that? Because I think that's really kind of key too. That's something we can do possibly. So, but then I had a question also, part 2. What about like people that, you have to, like they say, I got to eat something, my sugar level. So how can, fasting with something related to this help?
Okay. Going back to a caller, a couple of callers ago, she was asking, okay, how do I go into remission? Okay. So we talked about surgery is one way to go into remission. Another way that they've shown for people to go into remission, we talked about weight loss, we talked about surgery. Two other ways, and this is something where I'm going to challenge you with. One is intermittent fasting. So some of you have heard about intermittent fasting. So that means there's three different ways people are doing it. People are doing a 18-6, where they fast for 18 hours a day, and they period. So you eat you eat at lunch, and then you eat up to 6 o'clock, but nothing after that. Okay, so and what happens is during that period that you're fasting, your body says, okay, I need blood sugar. Your blood sugar can never drop to zero. If it drops to zero, you're dead. Okay, so you have your liver stores up glucose, and what it does is it makes a more concentrated form of glucose called glycogen. And so during periods where you're fasting, where you're not eating anything, your liver says, okay, I'm not eating anything. I got no sugar floating around. Okay, I need some more sugar to keep things going. So it breaks down that glycogen that's in your liver, and that's going to last you for about 12 hours. Okay, before you deplete that. And then when you deplete that, then your body says, okay, I still need some. Now I'm going to start burning fat. So as you can see, you got to use up that glycogen first before you start losing weight, because you start losing fat, that's when you start losing weight. So your body needs periods where nothing's going in, and so it has to start using fat instead. So intermittent fasting kind of puts you into that state where you use up all that glycogen, and now you can start losing fat. Okay. And so that is one way that people have that. And then the other way is to do fasting days. So some people are doing 5 days where they 5 days where they eat and they fast for 2 days. Okay.
When you say fast for 2 days, that means no food for 2 days?
Right. So they might do like 2 days. They might do like they might do Friday and Monday or Wednesday or something like that. So they pick 2 days of the week. Right. And they can drink and stuff. In fact, some of the people do a modified ones where they might have juices that they can drink
but juices have sugar, right?
Well, yeah. So you kind of have to watch what you get. You have to modify
juices,
that. Right. So they put protein shakes, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So, but yeah, they do a modified one where you're having very few calories on your fasting days, and then you can eat what you want on those other days. But anyway, doing that, intermittent fasting is another way that they've shown where they were able to put people into remission. Okay, and so now again, I'm gonna challenge you. If you don't want those pills, there's a price you're going to pay, and the price you're going to pay is that you're going to have to make some lifestyle changes. Okay, it's one thing to expect that God's going to deliver you from something, but if He's telling you, I want you to change the way that you're eating, okay, and I'm going to say the G word, you can't be gluttonous, because that's what gets us into trouble. And so so you can come off the pills, but you're going to have to make some changes.
Do we have another caller?
We got another caller, right?
Okay.
And then real quick, I'm gonna say the other way that you can go into remission is low carb diets, and a lot of us have heard about Atkins, paleo, all variations of low carbohydrate. So limiting the carbohydrates is another way to put your body into remission. So you can do those. You
can come more like bread, starchy foods.
So that means severely cutting the carbohydrates you eat. That kind of goes back to we talked about the beans and the rice and the pastas.
Sorry,
and the
caller,
potatoes.
about the beans. We're gonna have to limit those.
Yeah,
okay,
you can limit them. And another thing, that's why I want you to get the Freestyle Libre, get the continuous glucose monitor, because that way you can see what effect it has. Some people are more sensitive than other people to starches, and so you'll
get readings based on you'll be able to say, okay, I just ate that.
Right, yeah, exactly, right.
And you can see sugar up.
I can say like butter beans are fine. I can do well with butter beans, but I can't have pinto beans, or I can't have so you can start.
Yeah, so that's the importance of that monitor.
Or if I put sometimes adding protein to it. So if I put some turkey in my beans, maybe my sugar is a little better than if I don't.
Mm-hmm. So is that machine that you were talking about, the monitor?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is that something that's prescribed, or is it
it's prescribed
piece?
And the great thing about it is that you can get this for they will give you a free one. So you can, for at least for 2 weeks, you can check and see what your sugar is looking like. It doesn't cost you anything. You gotta get a prescription from your doctor.
What is it called again, Dr. Izard?
It's called Freestyle Libre. So free, FREE, style, STYLE, Freestyle Libre, Libre. So there's a Freestyle Libre 3, and then there's Dexcom is the other company that makes it. Dexcom. They make a monitor. Dexcom, they're up to 3 now, maybe 4. But it works in a similar way. It talks to your phone. It gives you continuous monitoring of your blood sugar. You don't have to do finger sticks.
Yeah, and I see people just
right. They don't have to, it used to be right. So the old one, you had to touch your phone to your arm.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to do that now. It continuously sends it to your phone, and you get a readout, and you can set it up so that your doctor gets a copy of your lab. So
it automatically goes to your doctor.
Wow.
Yep. So so the doctor can look at it and they can see, oh, okay, this person had a high sugar last time. I know what's going on. I'm gonna give you a call. Or worse, you're getting low sugars. Your sugars are getting low. We probably should back off on some of your medication. So it's changing. Because it used to be this was only for people that were on insulin pumps and it was really expensive. Now the common person can have it. So
that's wonderful. That's
talk to
good
your doctor
to
about getting
know.
that. Let's
so
talk
you can talk to
caller.
your doctor to get that device.
Normally we would go to break right now. Let's go ahead and try to get the caller in. He's been waiting.
Okay.
Yes. Caller, you're at the table this morning. Thanks for calling in.
Good morning. Good morning, Devo. Thanks for having me on this. Good morning, Devo. Good morning, Carvey. Good morning, Karen. Good morning, Dr. Izard.
Good
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Milwaukee. Yes, Tyrone W.
Good morning, Moon.
Yes. Well, I'll tell you, I'm between a rock and a hard place because my brother Ernest passed away in 2013 from the complications of diabetics. But I'll tell you, it was onset, or I would say it was enhanced by the cryptosporidium in the water and the lead and stuff. So therefore, and even me with lymphedema, lymphoma, whatever, my legs are really crazy, but I'm still not to his point. I mean, I haven't been on dialysis or anything like that, like he was. But and Sister Karen knows. I mean, orange juice, that's my liquid sunshine, man. I mean, I drink a gallon of orange juice before I drink a cup of water.
And that's got a lot of sugar in it.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you something. Apple cider, the Welch's grape juice, the papaya. But if you can't boil lead out of water, and the cryptosporidium, has got you, going and coming with, peeing and all that stuff there and everything else. I mean, I would rather take my chances with the juices there than having to know that lead is still in the water to some degree because you can't boil it out. Cryptosporidium and all these other things, Dukian in the water and everything else. But yeah, I just wanted to say, are we, really between a rock and a hard place because you can't boil lead out of water and all these other things. And, I mean, you got to drink something.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll still drink tea every once in a while, but even some of the store-bought teas are kind of sweet. Not too much soda, but every once in a while, a cream soda or root beer. Yeah, but I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take up too much time.
Right.
No, we'll address that a little bit when we come back off a break.
Thank you,
caller, for coming to sit at the table with us. This is Karen Dotson from the All of Us Research Program at the Medical College of Wisconsin. We also have Dr. Kevin Izard. He's a family practice doctor and also co-investigator for the All of Us Research Program as well. We're talking about diabetes, and we want you to join us back after our break. Feel free to call in. We have a caller on the line. Just continue to hold, and we'll be back in about a few minutes. Johnson from the All of Us Research Program, and I have Dr. Kevin Izard with us, who is a family practice doctor, and we're talking about diabetes. We've been having some really strong discussion about diabetes. We've been having lots of callers. Matter of fact, we have a caller on the line. Good morning, caller. You at the table? Good morning. Thank you for joining us at the table. Caller, can you hear
Hello?
me? Yes, yes,
Hello?
caller. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, hey, how you doing? This is Andre and Lee Ellis.
Good morning, Mr. Ellis.
Hey, Dr. Izard and Ms. Dotson. I am excited to hear this subject today. I'm diabetic and have been for a number of years. Here's what I found too, and I'm not sure you all discussed it. It takes a lot of discipline if you're trying to heal yourself, and if you're trying to live with diabetes, it takes management.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot do what it took for you to get diabetes. You have to eliminate that.
Right.
So
right.
the juices and all of that got to go. The sugar got to go. In fact, most of the white stuff has to go. The flour, the carbohydrate stuff.
Tell him, Mr. Ellis. Tell him.
You got to limit it as much as you can. Here's what I do. Rather than drinking the juices, I put a cucumber in my water. I put a lemon slice in my water. So I have the flavor of the juice, but I don't have the sugar of the juice. Mm-hmm. And if you practice that, you practice flavor, you won't crave the sugar as much. It takes a while for that sugar to come out of your system because it's addictive. And I'm a baker too, so I can't even eat the desserts that I bake. Here's the other thing: your portion sizes. Mm-hmm. You know, when food tastes good, you want more of it. You want more of it the next day. You want more of it in the middle of the night, and you just got to stay away from it. You got to look at the size of your hand, the palm of your hand, or somewhere, and you just got to limit it. But the things that you're not supposed to have, you just got to do without it, especially if you want to avoid amputation. In the last month, I know 3 men that have lost a whole foot. And when you lose body limbs like that, you start using body parts, depression comes in, trauma, and all other kind of things that you have to deal with. So you are not the same. Once you are diagnosed with diabetes, you have to begin the practice of elimination, and that's the stuff that could eliminate your life. And if you're not careful, and if you don't do that discipline, you will be sick, you will be tired. Here's the other thing. I quit smoking everything, drinking any alcohol 7-8 months ago. And when I tell you that divinity has entered my life, I feel good. I sleep good. My levels are changing. I'm excited about that. So you got to do an elimination. Otherwise, if you don't eliminate, you're going to be eliminated. That's my word.
So, caller, how long were you challenged with diabetes? When did it start?
Probably about 15 years ago.
Okay, so you really know how to work this thing. Okay, great.
Yeah. So,
well, I also know how it can be damaging.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We thank you for calling, Mr. Ellis. But you know what you said was spot on. You know, and so again, you got an option. Well, when the doctor tells you have diabetes, you can either say, let's do the standard stuff. The standard stuff means medication, and and controlling it, or if you want to be aggressive, and I'm hoping that most people are going to want to do this, you can make those changes that you need to do. Start doing intermittent fasting, or start doing a low carb diet, or exercise, lose weight. You know, so those are most people aren't going to do surgery. But you know, those 3 things are things that people can do to get their diabetes into remission, so you don't even need medication. So I'm gonna give you the punchline here for my story. So my A1C, when I checked it again 3 months later, it was down to 6.4 again. So I did hit my goal. I want to get below, get out of diabetes. That's how I'm medication. I was on metformin. That was just metformin, and then making those changes. And then my goal again is a year to come off everything. So I'm now 9 months out. So I got another 3 months later, another A1C. It was down to 5.8, and that was on metformin. Okay. So I said, okay, I'm doing better. So let me try coming off the medication. Now, again, I'm a doctor, so I'm talking to my doctor. I know what I'm talking about.
Doctors to doctor.
Right, doctor to doctor, right. So, he was like, well, let me do whatever I wanted to do. And most people don't have that, that ability to, to tell the doctor what they're going to do. But you do. Talk to your doctor and say, I want to come off medication. What do I have to do that? Okay. And most doctors will work with you to do that. Okay. But it's more work for both of you to do it, but it's a nice goal to have. So 9 months out, my last one I just had recently last week, my A1C off of all medication was back to 6.4. So
Wow,
I
look at you.
yeah. So I hit my remission like I've talked about. It really should be 6 months. So we'll see in 3 more months if it's still below 6.5. Then I've done it.
So are you on the medication still?
I'm off medication, no medication, just watching my carbs. And now again, I'll have occasional sweet, but I can't have sweets all the time. I got to limit what I have. So if I know that, there's a birthday party this weekend, I'll be real good. And then I'll say, okay, I'll eat whatever I want at the birthday party.
Dr. Izard, and I know Dr. Jeff Whittle, you're on the line to join us today. He is also an internal medicine physician at Veterans Administration, along with the Medical College of Wisconsin, and co-investigator for the All of Us research program. So I want to say welcome and good morning, Dr. Whittle.
Good morning, Dr. Whittle.
Hey, good morning. Boy, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. So I want to encourage people because it can be done. It can be done. But all those people who say they're tired of taking medication, they're tired of taking, even taking insulin. If you work with your doctor, you work with your providers, you work with a dietitian, you can get to that goal. Okay. And it's not onerous. It's not something that you can't do. Stop thinking about what you can't do and start thinking about what you can do. Like the previous caller was talking, Mr. Ellis talking about, drinking water. Flavor your water with something then to make it, more palatable.
Like lemon, lime, or something like that put in there to kind of give it a little taste. Because I know we had a previous caller said they love the orange juice, but we're going to have to try to limit that. Or, sometimes if you decide you want to drink some of those juices, put some water in it or, water it down a little bit.
Or the sugar-free juices now too. You can get that tastes pretty good. I mean, in the beginning, you have to get used to that artificial, sweetener taste. But it's better than being on medication.
Right, that medication, and also having those sugar levels so high where it really affects the body. And so, Dr. Kevin Izard, do you have some last parting remarks?
Yeah,
with
so
us?
I got to run up to see patients, but. If you gather anything from this morning, the points I want you to get are this: talk to your doctor about getting a continuous glucose monitor. Like I said, the Freestyle Libre or the Dexcom. It'll make a huge difference in how you can manage your diabetes yourself. That's number one. Number two, consider putting your diabetes in remission rather than just controlling it. Okay. Now that's going to mean you need to make some changes, like doing either intermittent fasting or doing a low carb diet or losing weight. Okay. Those are your options if you want to come off medication. So I want to challenge you to do better than just controlling it, get it into remission.
And those are significant ideas for us to really take and consider. We thank Dr. Kevin Izard for giving us walking us through his journey there and being successful with it as well. And so, Dr. Jeff Whittle, we want to welcome you this morning and thank you for wanting to have conversation with the community about diabetes and also talking about the All of Us research program and some of the things that have been happening. I was looking online and there's over 450 projects, I should say, that are doing something with diabetes in some form or fashion. I wanted to mention to people that the All of Us research program, the ultimate goal is to build the largest database. And Dr. Jeff Whittle is going to talk a little bit about why that's so important, especially for people of color. And that's one of the reasons why we're on. And so if you have questions about the All of Us research program, you can always call us at 414-955-2689. That's 414-955-2689, or go to joinofallofus.org and you can enroll into the program. So Dr. Jeff Whittle, just wanted to welcome you today. And also we're talking about diabetes and how research is so important and some of the things that people should know about it. Welcome.
Yeah, well, it's great to be here, Karen.
So go ahead, Dr. Whittle.
Yeah, well, it's interesting to hear the end of Kevin's talk because it really is the case that lifestyle can have such a huge impact, and the research has helped us to identify that fact, and maybe give a little bit of advice about how to get your weight down. Because I think people who've been trying to lose weight for a while have probably heard, oh, we're supposed to not eat any fat, and then we can't eat eggs. But now we can eat eggs, and high carbs are bad, and high fat isn't so bad. So, and some of this is because we do have experience. And I think that what may happen as time goes on, and as people participate in studies like all of us, we may find, well, for Mr. Smith, probably the low carb diet is not a great choice. He's going to be sensitive to all that fat. Whereas for somebody else, the low fat diet, which conversely will mean high carb, they're not going to tolerate that. And their sugar is going to go through the roof, and they're going to have a lot of problems. So I think that we think of precision medicine, but we like to talk about precision health. And that's a tailored diet, maybe a little bit of a tailored exercise program, and then maybe some tailored medication as well. But I think that's all in the future. Right now, we know what Dr. Izard said is correct. So I think there's lots of experience that works. And just tailoring it around the edges is something we can do in the future. But today, regular exercise, a healthy diet, and a healthy weight, everybody's on board with that.
Dr. Whittle, I was looking at some of the different research that the National Institute of Health really reported on as it relates to the All of Us research program. And they had some Fitbit data that really spoke to and mentioned that over people that had over 10,700 steps a day is linked to the lower risk of type 2 diabetes. Can you explain why exercise is so important for people challenged with diabetes?
Well, your muscles do use sugar as their favorite type of energy. People who are marathoners have heard of hitting the wall at 20 miles or so, and that means you've basically used up all the sugar stores your body has. And at that point, you have to convert over to burning fat, which you can do. And in fact, people keep on running and they finish their marathon or even their ultra marathon. But all of us in everyday life, I haven't run 20 miles, and I'm burning sugar with all my muscle activity. So if I walk regularly, I'm keeping my sugars lower. That doesn't mean that walking is going to fix a sugar of 300, but it's going to make that sugar 300, 280, which isn't great, but is better than 300. So I think that for people at the margin, like Dr. Izard, if he stops exercising, even if he keeps the same weight, eats the same diet, he's going to have a hard time keeping that sugar and that A1C at the levels he wants.
So that's one of the reasons why exercise is so important, because it keeps those levels down. And go ahead, Dr. Whittle.
Okay, so one of the things that my exercise expert friend says is that exercise is a very unique medication, because we're very clear that it lowers the risk of diabetes, as you pointed out. But we also know that it raises your good cholesterol. We know that it decreases the risk of depression. We know that it helps various types of pain. We know that it tends to make people more cognitively sharp for longer. And we know that it is good for almost everything that the human body does. And that makes a lot of sense, because for many years, there were no jobs for people where they're sitting at desks. Your job was chasing down food or finding food in the forest, or then for a few years, the last few thousand, maybe working in the fields. But really the work of sitting at a desk and thinking has not how we've gotten our food for the first 250,000 years that there were people. And I think that something that the body has evolved to expect. So you are being much more natural if you're doing something physical than if you're doing what I'm doing right now.
And you mean sitting down talking to us right now?
Exactly. Sitting down, and I can be sitting down for most of the morning.
I know that's the challenge that we have with our jobs. We're at those desks or we're sitting down.
Yeah, and some of the research that's going on now suggests that you can reverse some of that downside, even if you can get up for 2 minutes every hour and just walk around the room. I can take a little bit of time between patients and walk for 2 minutes. Pretty good impact on health in early studies. That's why studies like the Fitbit one you mentioned are going to really help us to confirm that that's the case. Because unlike the original studies with that, which might have been done with 100 people that had Fitbits and a very selected population, we have 10,000 people that have Fitbits, and we have a very diverse population that's using that. So I think that we really are going to be able to learn a lot more useful information about variations in exercise than we know today. But that's going to take a diverse group of people to participate, and the NIH figuring out ways to put Fitbits in the hands of more people because they're not free.
Exactly.
Right now we rely on people who already have them.
Mm-hmm. That's really key. Dr. Whittle, when I'm going to the doctor and I come in to get my physical, I'm assuming that my doctor's going to check my my sugar levels. Is that correct most of the time?
I think that it wouldn't hurt to ask. I think that, and the other thing is that we can check your sugar levels pretty easily, and that shows up almost accidentally in some of the panels we do. But the hemoglobin A1C, which is a much better measure of your overall blood sugar control, doesn't always get checked. Recommendations are to start checking it depending on the person's background, depending upon their size. Most of it's either 45, 50, or 55 that people should be checking that routinely. But if you have people who are from a high-risk group, so somebody who's quite heavy, somebody who's Southeast Asian, to a little bit lesser extent, people who are African American, we're going to be checking it earlier. But it's very much the case that it should be tailored to the person and probably done every year or at least every couple of years as a screen.
I was always looking at that. That's been a challenge for a lot of African Americans, diabetes. And then I was reading, Dr. Whittle, that in Africa, diabetes is really low. And then I was like, well, why is that? And then I was thinking the types of food that they eat, and they walk a lot of places. And so, I think that we assume that just because you're, African American or a person of color, that you're going to have a diabetes issue, but it kind of shows that, the way we live has a lot to do with it as well.
Absolutely. Famously, the people in certain Indian tribes have extremely high rates of diabetes, 50% of the population. But they didn't have that when there were no Europeans here in the country screwing it up. They were very physically active. It was very adaptive. The fact that they could retain sugar and keep their sugar up even when food was scarce was actually an evolutionary advantage. So they were adapted to an environment that involved a lot of walking around, relatively limited food availability, and that was great. But some of the same things probably the case in the African American population, or in the African population, I should say. And then the African Americans, typically mixed background, are going to not have that lifestyle, and so they have a lifestyle that was evolved to be more active, or a genetic test that's evolved to be more active, and now the lifestyle's not active, and you got a lot of diabetes.
Dr. Whittle, we have a caller on the line this morning that has some questions. This is wonderful. So, caller, you're at the table. Good morning.
Good morning. I wanted to ask about like the fruit, because I love fruit, and then sometimes I get the dry fruit from the food pantries, and I can't make ends meet. But I take it and I boil it down, and I use it to make tea. Like sometimes, you might get some of the, or even sometimes I even purchase it. I wonder, is that a good way to instead of using regular sugar? Because I don't like the sweetness because they, like the artificial sweetness. Because I was diagnosed at the time for pre-diabetes, but I lost a lot of weight, and I was like, no, I'm not gonna become a diabetic. So I had to back up off of that bread and rice because it always showed up in my panel. And my doctor told me to lay off rice because I love rice. And I was wondering if by using the fruit, like to subsidize the sugars, is that, like regular sugar, is that a okay thing to do?
I guess I would say that fruit obviously it's sweet because it has sugar in it, but the nice thing about fruit is that the sugar is delivered in small packets, right? Because it has fiber in it, and that really makes the sugar get into your system more slowly. The downside to fruit juices is you've taken that out of those packages. So when we have people with diabetes, we teach them, keep those little juice boxes, and you can take the fruit juice in a big hurry, and it will bring your sugar up in a hurry. So I have a child who had diabetes, the kind that develops in children, and we would carry around the juice boxes because if they got down into the 40s and 50s, the blood sugar wise, we could bring it up in a hurry with that juice. So that's good if you're going low, but people who have diabetes, you don't want to go low if you can help it, and you also don't want to go high. So the juice is probably not my first choice. I like the raw fruits, or fruit that's been stewed. It's you're eating, but you're eating the fiber that's came with the fruit, and the trade-off between fruit and say corn syrup or sugar, these other forms of sugar, is really no contest. Fruit is much better. If you start to compare fruit juice to other sorts of pure sugars, so let's say a 12-ounce can of orange juice and a 12-ounce can of Coca-Cola, they've got about the same amount of sugar, and to be honest, they tend to raise the sugar at about the same rate. So it is the case that although fruit is a pretty good choice, fruit juice, especially in significant amounts, is not a great idea. Yeah, back in the olden days when you went to a restaurant, I don't know, I'm 65, so I remember if you got juice with your breakfast, it was a tiny little cup. Now you get juice and it's a can that's 12 ounces. So we get 3 times as much juice as we used to get. Well, that raises the sugar a lot. So we've evolved. Our diets have changed in a way that's good for business, but bad for us.
Dr. Whittle, you raise a very important issue, I would say, because I was just thinking they tell you instead of drinking the orange juice, eat the orange. Instead of drinking the apple juice, eat the apple. And so what you're saying is that fiber that's with that fruit kind of balances the sugar, where if you're just drinking juice, it doesn't have that fiber in it.
Absolutely. And if you look at an orange and you look at a standard glass of orange juice and you squeezed every bit of juice out of that orange, you wouldn't anywhere near get as much as in that glass. So you oftentimes, when you have juice, you're having 3 oranges.
Without the fiber.
Without the fiber, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that really is food for thought, isn't it? As far as how we should really handle exactly what we eat and what we drink. I know we had a caller earlier that said they love to drink a lot of orange juice and they're diabetic. But, I think that now they kind of understand. Get the oranges. Don't get the orange juice if you decide that you want. And then, Dr. Whittle, I was also reading that different types of fruit kind of help. It was interesting. As sweet as bananas are, you would think that might be an issue as far as for diabetics. But I was reading something and it said that kind of helps in a sense. Can you speak to that?
Well, I think that there's a fair amount of fiber in it. So if you look at the amount of the banana that you eat, it's a pretty fair amount. And the amount of sugar is probably not that much different than what you'd see in an orange or an apple. But I think that I wouldn't want to preference one of the fruits over the others. So people really prefer to have cantaloupe or watermelon or mango. I think they all are healthy foods, and they all have advantages. But I think that in moderation, all of those can be part of a good diet. But I personally am a big banana fan, but that's just because I like the taste.
That's why I was just like, oh, okay, that's kind of nice to know. We also, Dr. Whittle, had a caller that called in and was talking about love their beans. And, and Dr. Izard really talked to them and said, you got to do everything in proportion as far as it relates to that as well, because that's a starch. And so that's something that, people need to know, like, how do we balance that? Like the person that called in and said, I like my beans and I want to have those today. What, of course, proportion makes a really strong, significant choice when you're doing that. And he also mentioned having some protein, like maybe some turkey or something like that with that. Can you speak a little bit more to how we should look at balancing when we have this challenge here?
Yeah, well, I would say that I hesitate to talk too much about a specific food like, say, beans, right? Because there's green beans, there's baked beans with a bunch of sugar on them, and there's lentils, which you've made with some oil and maybe some ham for flavoring, a small amount. Then, boy, some of those are really healthy foods, but the baked beans with a bunch of sugar and salt, maybe not quite as good as the other choices. So I think that it's assuming that we're talking about the beans that have starch in it. So these would be lentils, the different kidney beans and the garbanzo beans, and the ones that you would use to make hummus or other things where there's a bean paste. Those are really healthy foods.
What about Dr. Wood? I wanted to ask, like in our culture, we like lima beans.
Yep,
black-eyed peas.
So, my culture too. Yeah, we have black-eyed
what else,
peas.
Debo? What was the caller talking about, Debo, about the beans? Because I think we had, go ahead, Dr. Whittle.
Yeah, I'd be a huge fan of those. I think that the starch is not a very rapidly absorbed starch, so it's much healthier than, say, bread, wheat from wheat, or somebody was referencing white rice or any rice really in the last, somebody else was mentioning that. So I think that beans are really a good choice. Some of the times the way we prepare them, if we're adding a lot of animal fats, maybe not quite as healthy, but the beans themselves are a really good choice.
Okay. Dr. Whittle, I wanted to ask, especially you have seen so many patients over your lifetime. What because you've been in the practice for so many years. I mean, let's just be honest about it. Yeah. So what has really been most effective for some of your patients that were suffering with diabetes that's been effective?
Yeah. So in the end, lifestyle is such a huge part of it that I think that I would agree with Dr. Izard that what's been effective is when people say, I don't want to be on medicines. I want to work on my diet and exercise, and they're able to do it. And some people say, my knees are so bad I can't walk. I'm not going to be able to exercise. I don't have the resources to join a place where I have access to a pool and I could walk in water. There are challenges. I think in those situations, then a lot of attention to diet, accepting the fact that you may not be able to walk. You might still be able to do a fair amount of work with the upper body. So people that are really set on managing it themselves and are creative in the types of physical activity they do and finding things that they both like and are willing to eat for the long term, they are the ones that are successful. So there's lots of medications, but I would hesitate to say, well, this one's the right one for people and the other ones are the wrong ones. The newer drugs that have come out that also have the side effect of lowering weight, they're pretty attractive, that's for sure. And right now they're priced out of many people's range, but as those come down in price, that will be helpful. And since you asked, some of the people that have the hardest time with diabetes are people that are quite heavy. So they weigh 320, 330, and their knees hurt, and it seems like a hopeless task to lose weight. The surgery for weight loss is highly effective and clearly works. It is something that people are afraid of because they've heard horror stories of people having complications from the procedure, ending up with a lot of difficulty. But as we've gotten better and better at that set of procedures, I shouldn't say that procedure, they're oftentimes very effective. That's not to say that I'm now giving you a guarantee that no matter what happens, you'll have a great outcome if you have surgery. And some of the surgery side effects are the ones that we want them to have. So you try to eat a whole bunch when you've had surgery. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be bad. But if you're willing to put up with discomfort, you can eventually ruin the surgery. So those are my preferences.
Thank you, Dr. Whittle. We're going to take a quick break and we're going to come back with Dr. Whittle. He's talking about, he's an internal medicine physician, and he's talking about diabetes and also the importance of research. If you have questions or would like to talk to the doctor about a certain situation related to diabetes, feel free to call us at 414-444-5250 or 414-444-5253. We'll be back on the other side with Dr. Jeff Whittle. At the Medical College of Wisconsin. I have Dr. Jeff Whittle with us. He's an internal medicine physician. And today's topic is diabetes and some of the challenges that we have. We had Dr. Kevin Izard on earlier today. He walked us through his journey of being able to be successful with the challenge that was presented to him related to diabetes. And, the challenge is for all of us to make sure that we're doing what we need to do and, taking more steps. That's one thing that research has proven. But Dr. Jeff Whittle, I wanted to talk with you about, we had a caller on earlier talking about they received certain medications and it really affected their stomach. And so they just don't take it. how would you recommend one of your patients that are challenged with diabetes and having challenges with the medications? How do you walk them through that process?
So I think that one of the things is to try to make it clear that there's about 7 different classes now of medications for diabetes that are pretty effective. And several of them it's pretty common that they have stomach side effects. Although almost, or I would say every one of those, most people can tolerate. There's not much in the way of stomach side effects. But a fair number, really, that's a high risk. So one I'd say is be open, consider other alternatives. I'll go back to Dr. Izard's story and say, the best thing is clearly to reverse some of the things that made you have diabetes in the first place. Since you can't change your predisposition to the condition, which is genetic, and you can't change your age, because the older you are, the more difficult it is for your body to handle sugar. It's really what you can change is your physical activity, your diet, and your weight. And those are things that people can do that don't require any medications. And the only side effect is you have to buy new clothes when you lose all that weight.
And that's a good side effect, right?
That's a good side effect to have. Yeah, well, but I think there almost always is a medication that people will tolerate. But oftentimes medications by themselves are just not going to be enough unless you're taking, or you are going to be taking 3 or 4 medications to control something. When if you were able to make some of those lifestyle changes, you might get by with one. Dr. Izard, for a little while, as he was on his way down with his weight and up with his physical activity, he was still taking that metformin, which is one of the ones that people oftentimes complain upsets their stomach. But most people, they take it without any difficulty at all, as he did.
So basically, if one doesn't work, then, and that's where precision medicine really comes in, right, Dr. Whittle, when we start talking about precision medicine and the importance of the All of Us research program is helping researchers identify, like based on your genetics and your biological makeup, maybe what works best for you. Can you speak to that, Dr. Whittle?
Yeah, well, just as you said, there are drugs that work by causing your pancreas to make more insulin. There are drugs that work by changing the pattern of your body's output of insulin. There are drugs that make your body make more of hormones that suppress your appetite. And there are drugs that work by making your muscles burn sugar more effectively, which lowers your sugar. And so all of those things together, those are different mechanisms. And some people may have a genetic predisposition for one of those mechanisms to work better than the other. Right now, the recommendation is if you have diabetes, the first line therapy is metformin. So that's what Dr. Izard went on. That's what I would recommend for anybody who came in and said, I have new diabetes, I need to do something. It's not uniformly the case, but that's my first assumption, is that metformin is the best choice for them. But a substantial number of people, either they won't be able to tolerate it, or it won't have much of an impact. And I wish I knew that to start with, but I don't. So I'm starting everybody on metformin, and then I'll see how they do. And if they don't do well on that, then the second step is a little bit less well established, especially with the new drugs that have come out. The ones that people know the brand names of is Ozempic and Victoza, and Trulicity, which are in this one category. Most of those are injectables. And then the Jardiance, Farxiga, and other ones that are in another category. How to use those is really still being worked through. A lot of research going on in that area. But I think that we'll learn their role over the next few years. But it will really be helpful if we can say, boy, if I just had a blood test and I could see what your genetics were and I can tailor it better, that'll be nice. But I don't think that's going to be available for 5 or 10 years.
But we're on our way, and that's the importance of having the All of Us research program to get people to join so we can have a diverse group for researchers to really tap into that data, that information that you provide. Dr. Whittle, one thing that we did not really talk about a lot, but I know it's interrelated, would be alcohol and being and having the challenge of diabetes in your life.
Yeah.
So how does
So alcohol,
how does alcohol play an effect?
well, so one of it is, right, we know that alcohol comes from different types of sugar. So it's carbohydrates are fermented, and that's where it goes. So most alcohol, beer, wine, to a lesser extent, distilled spirits, have some of that carbohydrates are still floating around. So it's a little extra carbs. And your body, it can burn alcohol. So it actually can use it as a food. And so if you're drinking, a 6-pack of beer, which is probably not going to put you in the hospital with liver failure, but it's definitely bringing you a bunch of calories. That's basically half the calories that a man needs and more than half the calories that a woman needs. And aside from the fact that it has negative impacts on your heart and your blood pressure and other things, so you don't have to be drinking enough to make you sick to have it have bad impact. And some of it's just the calories, but some of it are direct effects on the heart and liver and the intestinal system. Probably as a direct cause of diabetes, it's mostly the calories and the associated sugars that you get. So alcohol is bad for you in a lot of ways. It doesn't cause diabetes directly.
It doesn't cause diabetes, but can it up your sugar levels if you are challenged with that?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So because of the sugars that come with it, it will up your sugar levels. And even if you take something, a spirit like vodka or whiskey, where there's not a lot of sweetness in it, we usually dress that up with sweetness because that starts to get pretty hard to drink by itself. And so, people that are drinking mixed drinks, wine, beer, all are going to raise their sugars. And it, the small impact it has, even small amounts, we think of alcohol as a social lubricant. It helps you be more at ease, less inhibited. Turns out you're less inhibited about watching your diet. And so when we have a party, we eat a lot and we drink some, and that drinking tends to make us eat even more. So it's not that the alcohol itself is the problem, but the alcohol's effect on your inhibitions make it very hard to stick to your diet.
That's helpful because I always thought that, if a person was a diabetic, they really shouldn't have much alcohol. But, what you're saying is that proportion is always the key. And there's some other challenges with that. We talked a little bit about this, Dr. Whittle, and Dr. Izard mentioned this too about fasting. And I want people, because I feel like, this is something that intermittent fasting that really people are starting to talk more about. They're starting to do more of this, and it's really based to help your health. Can you speak to that? Because I know that we probably have a couple more minutes, about 5 more minutes on the show, 10 more minutes.
Yeah.
But I wanted you to speak to that because this is something that we can do to help ourselves.
Yeah. So fasting has turned out to be a pretty good way for a number of people to lose weight. It's you're the thing that makes you hungry. It turns out insulin is part of that equation. And so when you eat some carbohydrates, then your body makes insulin, which pushes your sugar down a little bit, and that tends to make you hungry. Those fairly wide fluctuations in sugar. When you're fasting, your sugar kind of gets to a certain level and it stops going down. It kind of stays there. Your body doesn't need to make a lot of insulin because there's not sugar floating around. So you don't have any real stimulus to get hungry. So as you fast, you get better at not feeling the need to eat. I think many of us have had the experience where you stop and grab a donut and maybe some coffee with a sweetener in it for breakfast, and at 10 o'clock you're starving. And that's the carbohydrates that you ate, which, in your average pick and save donut is 350 calories. That should be more than enough for breakfast. But you burn through that so fast because it's simple carbohydrates, and your body has poured out a bunch of insulin. And so now you've got this insulin there, the carbohydrates are going away. Even if you're not diabetic, at 10 o'clock, you're feeling very uneasy because your sugar has just dropped from 140 to 60. And you've got a bunch of insulin there. You're going to eat, and you're going to probably eat some stuff that's bad for you. If you're in a fasting situation, one, you tend to have, when you do eat, you're going to eat a relatively high-fat diet, and I think that Dr. Izard mentioned that as well as I was on a call with him. That higher fat diet doesn't allow your body to raise the sugar so quickly, and it doesn't have the need for a lot of insulin to push your sugar back down. So a diet that has a fair amount of protein and fat, both of which kind of slow the rate of sugar change, and then periods where you don't eat anything at all, you get a very stable body environment and not a lot of insulin. Sugars are not bouncing around. Turns out it's pretty good for your ability to be on to stick to a diet.
And I think that's really key as far as when we start looking at what we can empower ourselves to do. Some of the challenges that were brought forth to us today is that, Dr. Izard said he took control over his illness and he was able then to conquer what was the challenge, before him. So he, started doing this exercise, started losing weight. He did take the medication for a while and now he's not doing it. So the things that we should look at that we are empowered to do is to, like some people, you can do more exercise if you can't. Maybe that might be the people, Dr. Whittle, to consider with the fasting if they can't because if they have, bad limbs or they can't walk, their knees are challenging, for walking. Maybe do you think that the intermittent fasting would be something they might want to consider as well?
I think that anybody who's trying to avoid those highs and lows of blood sugars, intermittent fasting can be a valuable tool. I think that one of the things that you mentioned is that, Dr. Izard was able to do a lot of different things, and that's commendable. I think that people who say, well, I can't do that, the option isn't, oh, I either have to be some sort of Olympic athlete and be in training all the time, or I should just do it, or I can't do it, and nothing's going to turn out well. You should, if you are, all you do is sit on the couch and watch TV, I'd like you to start getting up and changing the channels instead of using the remote. So those 10 extra steps walking to the TV to turn off something you like and put in, that's an improvement. So every improvement, if you eat 2 donuts a day, if you eat a donut and a half, it's not that I'm going to recommend a donut and a half for everybody, but it's better for those people eating 2. And I think that you should do what works for you amongst a healthy diet. And sometimes it's good to get to explain to somebody who's a medical professional, this is what I'm doing, what do you think of that? Because unfortunately, the internet is not a very reliable source of information. The right information is on the internet almost all the time, but it's not labeled as the right information. There's some of it that's wrong information that looks like it's the right information because it's what you'd like to do. And maybe you've heard that somebody did that and they did well, but we have studies like All of Us to help us understand what really works for most people, and especially diverse people. And because the environment that people face if they're from diverse communities can be very different than the environment from other communities, it's really important to have people from all over join. So we're pushing hard to get people from northern Wisconsin, where they have different exposures up there, pesticides in the environment, iron tailings from iron mines, and we're trying to make sure we get people from Milwaukee, where they may live in areas where they don't feel safe, and that's a chronic stress, or they're exposed to lead in their pipes. So having this really diverse population is key to really giving good advice to people for people like myself. So hopefully in 5 years, I'll be giving much better advice than I'm giving today. Although I think we can get really good advice today. We'll give better advice in 5 years.
Dr. Jeff Whittle, we thank you for joining us at the table today to speak on diabetes. Before we leave, I wanted to ask, what would be your words of wisdom for the community based on our conversation today?
I'd say Dr. Izard is a heck of a doctor, and you should do what he tells you.
I agree.
Hit it exactly on the head. Being physically active and eating a healthy diet is good. You name the condition. I can't think of one that is not helped by that combination. And it's true. It's nice to have medication and stuff. That's what I do for a living. But people do a lot more for their health than I can ever do for their health.
So in other words, we have control of our destiny related to our health. And, some things we can't help, but there's genetic makeups, but we can also, work towards making some changes in our lives. And I appreciate you, calling in and talking with us today, Dr. Jeff Whittle. He's an internal medicine doctor at the Veterans Administration and also at the Medical College of Wisconsin. And he's been with the All of Us Research Program in the Milwaukee area from the very beginning. So we thank you for joining us today at the table. So I wanted to mention a couple things that the All of Us Research Program is going to be doing next week. Actually, we're going to be at Versity. It's going to be okay. Thank you, Dr. Whittle. I know you have patience. Thank you so much. But we wanted to mention that we'll be at Versity on King Drive September 24th. They're having, and this is kind of neat. I think that some people might want to come out and learn your blood type. You can get that free. And that's going to be September 24th from 12 to 5 o'clock. And that's at the Thrive On building at, it's at 2153 North Dr. Martin Luther King Drive, Jr. in Suite 1600. The other thing I wanted to mention is that we're going to be at some locations, because if you want to join us, we're going to be at Independence First on October 7th. That's at 540 South 1st Street. And that's going to be Monday, October 7th from 8:30 to 11:30. And then we're also going to be at McKinley. We're there at least once a month at the McKinley location. And that location is 1271 North 6th Street. So you can join us there. And always we're at Curative. So feel free. If you would like to be a part of the All of Us Research Program, you can go to joinallofus.org. You can log in, take the questions and surveys, and then you can schedule a time for us to get a chance to see you so you can give your bio samples. If you have any questions, please call. We can also assist you. Some people aren't good on the computer, and so we realize that. And so we have assistants. We have our staff to assist you as well. And you can call us at 414-955-2689. 414-955-2689. This is Karen Dotson from the All of Us Research Program. I appreciate the calls today. We were sitting at the table having good conversation about diabetes. Let's make a pact that we're going to start doing more steps, and we're going to try out that intermittent fasting as well. Everybody have a wonderful, wonderful week.